Hi, my name is John McPherson. I thought it might be of interest to know a little of why and how this video on or footprints on a frozen continent came about and some of the effects of making such a video. In late 1975, at the same time as I was finishing up my PhD at the Antarctic Research Centre under the excellent tutorship of Peter Barrett, I published a coffee table book on Antarctica titled Footprints on a Frozen Continent. It was a coffee table book using the large collection of slides of Antarctica that I had accumulated over two expeditions to Antarctica in the 1970-71 and 73-74 VUWAE expeditions. The book largely covered general interest subjects in Antarctica, obviously the history, the heroic era. It covered the wildlife, it covered the geology, the geography, and some of the scientific activities going on at the time in Antarctica. To my great surprise, the book was a great success, and I think this was more to do with the general and wide interest in Antarctica that there was at the time. And of course, that interest in Antarctica hasn't really ever waned. 5 years later, whilst on a lectureship at the University of Cape Town in South Africa, I was asked to put together an Antarctic presentation using those many slides that I still carry around with me. And the result of that, after a year or two's work, was a 60-minute presentation that was a multimedia audiovisual extravaganza using multiple slide projectors and music and audio track. And that program was widely shown at schools, universities, clubs, and so on. It created a lot of interest, both in South Africa, and then I moved on a few years later to a lectureship at the University of Texas in Dallas, and again the program got dragged out and shown quite widely. However, with time, it ended up in the closet, gathering dust, and largely forgotten. Fast forward 35 years, and it was time to dust off the old multi-visual presentation and digitize it. The world of photography had changed greatly in 35 years. And this was all centered around the whole technology of digitizing. Images were taken in as digitized images now, and the displays, of course, were digital. Gone were the slides. So the first thing to do was to dust off literally 600 or so images and digitize them at the maximum possible resolution, using the best techniques possible. And in that way, the images would be able to be displayed at high quality, but most important from my standpoint initially was to just preserve these Kodachrome slides that were fast fading and being eaten by microorganisms, to preserve them forever as digital images. Using the latest high quality camera and lenses, each slide was rephotographed, and the raw data from that slide was then processed using several proprietary software programs to both clean up the image and also to enhance that image. The final result was an image that was not only as good as the original, but actually in many cases the final image is better than the original. And that's because the dynamic range was increased. That is, the shadow detail could be seen readily. That was not necessarily the case in all of the originals. And of course, the resolution was greatly enhanced, meaning the images were a lot sharper. The next task was to extract the original commentary track, which had been done in a studio. It was a professional commentary, so to speak, and reprocess it and clean it up and bring it back to at least its original quality. Some of the graphics were reworked, and the quality greatly improved there. The whole thing was then put back together using the latest video making software. A new music track was added finally using royalty-free music that was purchased from a service provider. For those who are interested in the specific technical details of the making of the video, I've attached a sheet at the end of this, a sheet which contains the specific technical aspects. Really, it's a workflow sheet on how the thing was put together. If anybody has any specific questions, I'd be happy to answer those. Just email me. The email is listed in that technical sheet also.